Advertising revenue, the key ingredient for most media companies, and getting an understanding of the state of the market and where it's headed is crucial. ZenithOptimedia's quarterly global ad spend forecast was updated just this week. To get insights on this and also some of the other key trends for marketers in the study, joining us today, Perrin, ZenithOptimedia CEO for Australia and New Zealand. Ian, great to see you. Thanks for coming on the program.
No worries at all.
Just firstly, the forecast for Australia, slow and steady is the way you describe it,
Yep.
and behind the global forecast.
I think we're slightly behind the global forecast. So if you have a look at Australia, we're about 2.5% we're projecting for this year. We're probably looking at over 3.5% for the rest of the world, which suggests we're slightly off, but it also doesn't take into account the fact that there are a number of emerging economies that are growing very quickly. It also takes into account the fact that the European zone is actually coming back quite strongly, and that's really been dragging global forecasts for the last few years, but we're finally starting to see some stability in Europe.
And I think the report indicated too, those figures pretty much repeating in 2015, 2016, with maybe slightly better than we're getting this year.
Yeah, sure. I think in Australia we're seeing and have seen for a while a very consistent advertising market. It hasn't been growing off the scale, but it's been very consistent growth. So we see that trend continuing over the next few years.
And just going through the various sectors there, what's your sort of forecasts for TV, subscription TV?
I think subscription TV has been phenomenally strong and will continue to be phenomenally strong, and that's really helping to drive the overall TV category. Even though, as you mentioned earlier, Channel 10 aren't doing that well, free-to-air is still showing growth. So we're still fairly bullish around the potential for television. I think what we're seeing, unfortunately, is a lot of revenue coming out of print titles and moving towards more digital assets, which is slightly more targeted. And I think we'll see a continuation of that trend. Other channels such as radio and out of home are kind of been probably a little bit slower in their growth that they would like to be, but again, they've been consistent.
And you mentioned then, look, the money moving out of print, but the report also notes, look, digital's going up a lot, but it's starting to, the edges are starting to get a little bit blurred and making it a challenge, I guess, to count some of those ad dollars. Maybe some of that print money is digital money, but staying with the print owners?
Well, I think at some point, you know, digital can only grow at 20% for so long, and it gets to a point where, you know, that it can only grow at that pace. So we're starting to see a slow decline in the growth of digital, but there's still very much a principle towards a lot of advertising dollars flowing towards digital channels.
When you're looking at various categories as well, what are your sort of predictions when you're looking at some of those?
Well, I think one of the categories that's been hurt a lot has been FMCG, and obviously they're trying to make more out of their retail presence. So I think what we would like to see is FMCG coming back a little bit more strongly. I also think from a retail point of view, we would like to see the retail category come back, and areas which have historically been very strong in the advertising market in Australia, such as telecommunications, have been soft for quite some time. So I think that's a category we're all looking at as an opportunity to grow.
Look, we also wanted to get you in here to talk about your pretty interesting study that the company's done over the past few months, looking at identifying some trends for marketers over the next 25 years. So it's sort of looking well into the future. We'll cover a few of those things. Now, one of them was the evolution of High Street into the I Street. What do you mean?
Yeah, and you know, part of the study is the company is now 25 years old, so we wanted to celebrate our 25th anniversary with the study of what the marketing landscape will look like in 2038. And what we're seeing now is people tend to research and engage with brands online and then go to the high street in order to buy those brands. What we're seeing now is people are starting to switch that behaviour, where they'll be going into stores to actually experience brands and learn more about brands, then go home and buy them online. So we're seeing that as a key switch in terms of how people behave.
And retailers aren't too happy about that, are they? They're still like stopping people taking photos on their phones of product and doing price comparisons in store.
I think the good ones will actually embrace it, because if you've got a really strong e-commerce platform, I think they don't mind where the sale comes from, but if they aren't ensuring that people are enjoying or experience or doing something with their brand in store, then they're probably going to lose those people, whether it's in store or online. So I think that the better marketers absolutely embrace the technology. There's so many ways that people can communicate in a store now, so I think the best way is to embrace that and use that for your brand.
content king. Where does this go over the next couple of
Well, I think, everyone's talking about content at the moment, and, it's one of those buzzwords like data, and everyone thinks they know everything about content. I mean, obviously, the massive trend is towards the democratisation of content and many people being able to produce content. So what that has meant has been a huge amount of quantity of content that is out on the web. What we'll probably see more towards now is how that can be created in more of a quality atmosphere, so making sure that people are producing top quality content that people actually want to experience. Because I think a lot of people are making stuff that people just literally aren't watching.
We talk a lot on this show about the delivery of content. You call it, I think, the democracy of content.
Sure.
We saw an example this week, Game of Thrones. A lot of talk about how it looks, Foxtel sort of locked it up. You can only get it there. But you think we'll have to see less of that in the future?
I think so. I think people are going to have to unlock their content and understand that if you do lock it up, people are going to pirate it. So again, you've got to embrace the technology that's there and understand that people want to watch it when they want to watch it, and not dictate when and where people watch the show. So I think increasingly distributors of content will start to understand they need to play a more fair game in terms of that.
All right, look, thank you so much.
Sure.
It's been great to have you on the program. Ian Perrin there from ZenithOptimedia. Do stay with us. We're going to take a very quick break after this. Coming up on Media Week, big ratings, big prize money too for the block finale.